and candidates who are here today. We're excited to host this forum. And I just want to say that now more than ever, local journalism is incredibly important. And as Evanston prepares for its upcoming elections, the Daily Northwestern, the Evanston Roundtable, and Where the People Meet TV are really dedicated to providing accurate and engaging and transparent coverage. So we're really looking forward to this forum today and getting to talk about and ask questions about the issues that matter the most to Evanston.
And hello, can you all hear me? Okay. I'm Malika Gardner with Where the People Meet, and thank you, Lily. I called her up and said, let's organize a forum. It's crucial right now. And I wanted all the media to get together to really do this. And the roundtable said, we'll come on as panelists. So it's important that we get the right information out. So thank you so much for working with me on this. Thank you. The stakes are definitely high right now. And across the country, we see things shifting in policy, in power, in leadership. And Evanston is the same thing. We have a lot of shifting taking place. And some people see it as progress, and they're excited for what's to come. And then others see this shifting as a serious concern. So whether you agree with it or you don't agree, you support, you don't support, the point is, it's leadership that matters. It matters. And this property that we're on right now, the history of this property, think about the leadership. Black families lived on this property. They had homes. It was the leadership back in what, 1930? 1929. The leadership decided they wanted this land. So they literally picked up the houses from the ground and moved them to the 5th Ward. That's how powerful leadership is. That's how powerful it is. And that's how powerful elections are. Because guess what? It can happen again. Might be happening right now, it just doesn't look the same. So we gotta pay attention. We gotta stay engaged. We gotta stay informed. And so I thank my media crew, friends here, Heidi Rondova, helping us out, my partner in crime, Don here, Percy, my mom, everybody, and all of you for coming out, because you could have been at the Super Bowl, watching the Super Bowl. But you put Evanston first, and that speaks volumes, and I thank you. So listen closely to all the candidates, the questions, and we will be coming out to get questions from you to ask the candidates. And thank you to the candidates. They're all coming at their different times. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for coming and take the tough questions from the panelists and the residents. Thank you so much. So we're going to get started and get this ball rolling. So we're going to start 30 seconds to introduce yourselves, and then after that, you'll each ask each other a question. 30 seconds to respond.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for including me in this forum. I really look forward to this conversation. You know, I'm really proud of what we've accomplished these last 4 years. We've made major progress in some of the bold things that we committed to work on, from the areas of sustainability to public safety to affordable housing. We've also made Evanston more livable. We've passed 4 budgets with no property tax increase and worked to make the city government easier to interact with on a number of fronts. And we're now in a pivotal moment in the country and a pivotal moment for the city. And I'm excited to ask for the opportunity to serve for 4 more years to continue to move us forward with experience and knowledge about how to make the city work for everyone. Thank you very much.
I'm Jeff Boarini. I've lived in Evanston for 34 years. My background is corporate and decades of experience there and in nonprofits. And I'm running for mayor. Evanston deserves a mayor who focuses solely on Evanston and is not focused on his next political job. The city is moving away from its residents, from things like putting assets to work, the 909 Davis lease, the Civic Center, Envision Evanston, residents are raising their voices and the city resolutely refuses to listen. I will be accountable solely to residents, and as mayor, I will put residents' needs and interests first. My question, Daniel. Last year, because of some oversight on inspection schedules, 24 residents were removed from their homes, their communities, their friends. And given the city's stated commitment to racial equity, to affordability, how do you justify your silence on that? And what can Black residents and other residents believe in your leadership to protect them from displacement?
This was a terrible situation on Wesley, as you know, a situation of 3 apartments of 8 units each, 24 affordable units of low-income residents, mostly African-American, many older adults. And those buildings were unsafe. Those buildings were not unsafe because of anything the city did, but they were unfortunately so unsafe that the city had to take action to keep the residents safe. But we didn't stop there. We didn't stop there. Though we could have legally, though a lot of communities would have, we said, this is an unimaginable situation that the residents are being put through, and so we have a responsibility to do what we can to help them. We provided a lot of support, rental assistance for 2 years for most residents, moving costs, storage costs, working with Connections for the Homeless and other entities across the community to help the residents being displaced find other housing, most of them in Evanston. And so this situation that was created by a third party that's not part of the city, but that we found because we were doing our inspections, and that forced us to make a judgment to keep people safe, then put us with this situation that we could have walked away from, but that's not how we are in Evanston. We chose to spend money, to spend time, to spend resources, to do what we could to support the residents in that situation, and I'm proud that we did. I wish we could have done more, but the truth is there's such an affordable housing challenge across Evanston that we have to make sure that we're devoting resources equitably across the entire city, and that's what I'm focused on achieving. So my question to you is, what's your favorite thing to do on Evanston on a Sunday afternoon?
It would be take a nap. Would be one. That isn't happening these days, I'm afraid. It would be reading. It would be possibly taking in a movie. Often it's with my son, okay? And he loves to go out for coffee, so we frequently do that near his place, near Church and Maple. Thank you.
All right, my question is about Envision Evanston. There was a little bit of a dust-up over the process, and I just wanted to kind of recap that and kind of look forward to what kind of leadership each of you won't bring to the city. So, as you know, the council has spread out the timeline for the rezoning. This was after a lot of residents complained that it was quick, it was too fast, they needed more time to speak up and really get into the details of the rezoning. So after that decision, you, Mr. Boarini, said that you hoped that, quote, that Biss would, quote, understand that honestly listening to constituents is better than lecturing them on morality. When I asked you about it, Biss, you did laugh, but also you did say that City Council made a good decision in terms of splitting the 2 components of Envision Evanston and spreading out the process. So my question for you is, looking back at these 12 months, pretty much 12 months now, of Envision Evanston's public process, what would you have done differently? 90 seconds.
You need much more than 90 seconds there, Sean, I'm afraid. Again, my background is project management. And the first thing you learn, I've learned it by mistakes in the past, the hard way, is that you have to get all the right people into the room at the beginning of any project. And that's how you achieve success, particularly the people who might object to what you're doing. But everyone who is a stakeholder must be involved. And so that's where I would have begun the process. The other thing is to look to best practices. So I think the decision to try to do the comprehensive plan and the rezoning together was a big mistake. I think that caused problems all along. And I fear that it was because you were interested in getting this done in record time rather than necessarily doing the best job of it, I think. The project has run aground somewhat right now. And also it was interesting that you said that, you know, it was good that we separated the comprehensive plan from the rezoning. But, you know, a week or two before that, you weren't saying that. You said opposition was immoral, and you said we shouldn't do that. Yet despite that, when you sent out a fundraising letter, then after that you acknowledged that it's a really sprawling and complex issue, and this would give us more time to figure that out. So I think consistency would have helped in this, I think, across the board for this. But in regard to the entire project, I think it would have started differently, and you have to give these things time to play out, because I agree with you, it is a sprawling and complex issue. So, my 2 cents.
So, I'm going to first give a quick response to the direct question that you asked, Sean, and then speak to some of this. One thing that I wish the city had done differently is choose a different consultant. Clearly, that was not a good choice, and it has not gone well, and it's one that we're now digging our way out of. Jeff, you alluded to one really stupid thing that I said to Alex in December, and I regret that very much. And it generated a headline that left an impression that I really regret. But I want to share with you what I was trying to get across with that in that conversation, because what I was trying to get across, I think, is important. There are 2 basic ways to think about this timeline, and they're both true and important in my view. The first is, as you said, it's a mistake to go too fast. It's a mistake to go too fast because we need to get it right, because it's complicated, because there's a lot of different neighborhoods in Northwestern, and in Evanston, including some near Northwestern where there's certain considerations and others where there aren't. And each of those neighborhoods needs to have a different set of eyes on this, and we can't have something that hasn't gone through that process and something that isn't of that quality. At the same time, it's a mistake to go too slow. And here's why. What we're trying to achieve here is important. I want an Evanston where District 65 teachers can afford to live, where our police officers, our civil servants, our nurses who work in the hospital can afford to live. And that requires dealing with our affordability crisis across all income levels, and it requires a diversity of types of housing stock. I think if we want to tackle our affordability crisis successfully, we need to make sure we work on this issue. If we want to meet our climate goals, we need to make sure that we work on this issue. If we want revitalization of our business districts, especially our downtown, we need the buying power that comes with increased density that comes from getting this right. And if we want to tackle our property tax problem, we need to grow our tax base. And so all of the things that we're trying to accomplish by tackling this issue are critical. Not only that, but the rate of progress that occurs after a new comprehensive plan and zoning code are enacted is slow. It's gradual. You're creating a new foundation that then facilitates gradual change in the trajectory. And so we're trying to do things that are so pivotal for the city, and we're doing it with a tool that results in gradual change, and therefore a sense of urgency is essential. And we've got to strike that balance. The reason that slowing down was a good decision was that residents didn't feel they'd had enough time to have input, and we didn't feel that we had a product that was ready to go. And if, by the way, we're still there in September, we should delay again. But also subject to the criteria that we want to have a product that meets the standards of this community and that has had the input that's required from across the community, subject to those criteria, we ought to do this with a sense of urgency because it's really important.
So the role of mayor is an interesting one in our system of governance, where we have a city manager and a mayor, but the mayor doesn't actually vote on legislative issues unless you're casting a tiebreaker. So, how do each of you conceive of your job as mayor, the most important things in that job, and how would you essentially go about setting legislative priorities and what are the limitations of that?
To me, there's really two fundamental parts of the job as mayor. One is the chair of the city council, and one is a kind of public-facing leader. And as chair of the city council, the mayor has a critical role in setting literal agendas and also kind of the big picture agenda of where are we going as a city, what are our priorities. And I'm proud of both the priorities that I've set, but also the way in which I've laid out, first during my first campaign, detailed plans, a lot of thoughts, specifics. Hey, here's what I believe in. If you like it, vote for me. If you don't, don't. And then during the course of these last 4 years, I've been clear and specific and taken positions and supported ideas and tried to be an advocate for things that I felt were important. So I've been out there and clear and transparent about what I believe in and why I believe that it's good for the city of Evanston. So that piece of it, setting a direction and a vision for what happens in the city council chambers on Monday evenings, in collaboration with the community, with the city council, with the staff, that's one piece of the job. And the other piece of the job is you are a public-facing leader of the community, and that means many things. It means listening to everybody. It means hearing from everybody. It means spending a lot of time in direct conversation with residents with every different type of opinion in every different corner of the community. It means working with all kinds of stakeholders, whether those are nonprofits or advocates or activists or businesses or other government entities. It means being a person who is called in the most difficult moments, whether those are tragedies of violence or times of fear like our immigrant communities and our LGBT communities are feeling right now. And it means acting as somebody who can take all of those different stakeholders together and enable us to continue moving forward, to keep us acting, to not make it the case that because of the complexity of this town and the tensions and the different voices that we just wind up stuck. Because in this moment, we can't afford to be stuck. In this moment, we can't afford not to act. It's not only because of the nightmare coming at us from Washington, it's because on things like affordable housing, not moving is moving backwards because the trajectory is not on our side. So putting all of that together and keeping the city moving forward in pursuit of our goals and values and policy agendas, I think, is a pivotal role that really only the mayor can serve.
When I decided to run, one of the first things I did was talk to former Mayor Haggerty, and I think that he had some frustration in that the form of government we have is weak mayor, strong city manager, and he lamented that a lot of what he could do was only influence things, that he had to spend a lot of his time, cajoling and trying to move things around. I bet he's a little envious of how you've taken on the role of mayor, though, and sort of it's rather inverted the process here of being a strong mayor and having a very weak city manager as well. I think that when I compare to my corporate work as a middle manager, and middle managers, if any of you have filled that role, don't have a lot of power. They have to use a lot of influence all the time. So I'm used to working in 360 degrees. I have people who reported to me, I had to deal with them. Colleagues, I had to deal with them. People in other departments had to deal with them, and then of course executives and that. And there is some, a city, of course, is not a corporation, but there is some mirroring of sort of the CEO as mayor, the board of directors as the city council, and the city manager as rather CEO. You should be head of the board rather. So I think there is some mirroring of that, and so I would try to use those skills that I have to influence and return us to our chartered form of government, which is weak mayor and strong city manager. And I would hold city managers still accountable, first of all, for filling that role, number one. In terms of setting the agenda, though, I like what you said, that it's about the residents. And so listening to the residents is what should set the agenda, what's important, what's on their mind, and putting that forward. And I think finally, though, the foremost thing, though, is to be consistent in that and know when that you're going to listen and apply all the time what you're hearing so that you can serve, and I will serve, as the voice of residents on the city council as well, that kind of final filter for them, and hold the city council itself accountable for that, I think, in the future. Thank you.
Many residents have noticed a change in how city staff deals the community. There was a time when, I mean, there are some wonderful city staff there. I mean, they're absolutely amazing. But then there are some city staff that treat the residents as if we're peasants and they run us, and how dare we approach them, and you know, it's like the culture has changed in the Civic Center with some of the city staff. Do you all see that? And if you do, what is your plan to change that? Because
thank you for the question. And I've heard it from a number of corners at a variety of levels that residents do not feel heard. And for me, from watching, you know, I sometimes get the impression, and I agree with you, there are some excellent city staff members, and they are to be celebrated and thanked for their tremendous service that they do. I'm sure it's not easy to work in the public sector and have your work on view all the time. That said, I think I've seen, watching city staff, that at times the city staff behaves as if the city would work better if there just were no residents. We just get in the way of a lot of their planning, it seems like, sometimes. And so, as mayor, I would try to set that tone right from day one, beginning with the city council, on down right through the staff, that residents matter. Residents are at the top of the org chart, literally, in the city, okay? And that we put residents' needs and interests first, and set that culture going forward, and hold everybody accountable for that too. So when we hear complaints from people, we need to follow up on those. And I think one of the things I would do to try to stay close to that is move the 311 function under the office of mayor, so that those kinds of things, those street level things that are coming up, can get to the mayor as well. I may regret that, but nevertheless, that seems like one way to get some straight information from people. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have to respond to that last comment. You know, Jeff, you made this kind of snide attack about me acting like a strong mayor. That's what strong mayors do. Strong mayors try to take over hiring responsibilities. They try to get staff reporting to them. There is not a person in the city organization who reports to me because I respect our form of government. For me, accessibility is a religion. And for me, listening to people I disagree with is a religion. It is something that I take incredibly seriously. I spend an incredible amount of time reaching out to people who have different points of view and making sure I'm hearing from folks across the community. And when Luke Stowe came in as city manager, one of the things that I was enthusiastic about was that we see eye to eye on that front. And so I think there have been times in the past where maybe the city manager was kind of inaccessible to folks in the community, and Luke has made a very, very concerted effort to be out, listening to people, responsive. Even early on, I had to say to him, you know, maybe don't spend so much time in the comment threads. But he felt that level of responsibility to respond to folks with questions and concerns about the city. And we've talked a lot about holding staff accountable up and down the org chart to that approach, to an approach of we are here to work with everyone, we are here to have a customer service mentality and make sure that no matter what someone is bringing to us, we are going to, as an organization, do our best to hear them and figure out a way to solve that problem. Now, I do think that we have a challenge where sometimes where residents are frustrated with the way that things are going, Someone like me, I ran for office, I put myself in the frame. People should come for me in those situations. And sorry, friends, but the same is true of our colleagues on city council. We, by running for office, put ourselves in that position knowingly and voluntarily and willingly. And I think that there's circumstances when folks, instead of blaming the city council for what they don't like, they go after staff, and then we wind up with these very tense situations between residents and staff, which are not comfortable or beneficial, and they wind up in a situation where residents feel bad, and then staff feel, frankly, like they're not sure if this is the right place to work anymore because they're not sure if it's, they're going to find themselves in some public meeting, under attack. And so what I believe in doing is making sure that the concerns and the complaints and the frustrations are directed to me, to city council, to city manager, so that we can be accountable and responsible and then direct those concerns in such a way that they can be addressed as efficiently as possible.
Okay, we have time for about probably like 2 or 3 resident questions.
Good evening. As a 54-year resident in the same house, my neighborhood was eliminated by eminent domain between the city of Evanston and Northwestern. No matter what you call it, Wesley was another eminent domain. My whole neighborhood, which was predominantly black, was demolished. They would never, ever be able to come there. For those of you who don't know, I live at Emerson and Eastwood Road. I'm the only house left. E2 just sold for $148 million. Who is my neighbor? Do you think my neighbors are going to be able to come back and live there? Absolutely not. You, as the mayor, have the job of choosing the projects that get funded by the Good Neighbor Fund for Northwestern. Also, you have to realize that affirmative action is being demolished and eliminated by our new president. How will you ensure that us as black residents will get a fair chance at living where we want to live, not just in a certain area because you said that's not fair? Downtown Evanston, I'm only the black person that comes to most of the meetings. There are no black people that own and operate, own the business, own the property. And no one can tell me besides the Robinsons in downtown Evanston what black person owns property in downtown Evanston. This is designed. Envision 2045 and the comprehensive plan is just going to exacerbate this situation. It's not going to help. As you and Mayor, and I called on you 3 years ago, Mayor, and you never responded to me. I see you at crisis around Evanston, where white people are involved. Action is taken. 3 years ago, I called you and you stood at my building and you never called me back. It is still in the same condition 3 years ago. So now with affirmative action being deleted, how will you ensure that since you didn't help me 3 years ago, that any other black person won't be in my situation? No neighbors No black neighbors. No black neighbors. Eminent domain is real. And I don't appreciate people saying that I'm crazy and I'm the only house on the block. I didn't say you said it. But some of the previous aldermen and city staff said I'm misinformed. How will both of you ensure that black people are getting a fair chance? And I'd like to see when you're going to call me back and respond to my situation.
Thank you for that question. Let me start here where you began. We actually made a change that takes away mayoral power but does the right thing, in my opinion. The mayor no longer decides where the Good Neighbor Fund goes. The city council decides that together. And when we struck the historic deal with Northwestern to bring in record funding to the city for 15 years, unlike anything that's happened in the history of our relationship with Northwestern, one of the things that we decided as a council was that a significant amount of that funding was going to go to affordable housing. In fact, over the course of the deal, $30 million would go to the Affordable Housing Fund, $1 million a year for a chunk of time, and $2 million a year for a chunk of time. So that's one tool that we now have at our disposal to invest resources that come from Northwestern on affordable housing. It cannot, of course, be the end of the story. I'm enthusiastic about the changes to the inclusionary housing ordinance that are under consideration tomorrow, and there's talk even about potentially strengthening them. The most significant thing is upping the affordable housing threshold. So every time development happens, there's going to be more affordable units. In fact, roughly double the affordable units developed in Evanston from what would have been the case before. But additionally, what's called the fee in lieu, which is fee that developers have to pay if they want to pay in instead of developing housing on site, has gone through the roof, way, way, way more, capping at more than $1 million per unit. And so if they choose to deploy that option, that's going to be significant funding in our city's affordable housing fund that we can, again, use to address the crisis of affordable housing and, yes, the crisis of displacement that is going on across the city. But another piece of it has to be in zoning reform, because we just have more demand for Evanston than there is supply. The inventory that comes available has gone like this because people want to be here. People wanting to be here is a good thing, except when it prices folks out, and the way to stop that from happening is to address the supply crisis. So I hear what you're saying about the affordability crisis and the way that neighborhoods have gentrified. We need to do everything, not one thing or two things, but all of the above to address that if we want to actually get where we want to go. And finally, you said something pivotal, and I appreciate it and I want to highlight it. This administration is attacking communities like Evanston that believe in what we believe in, whether it's our reparations program, whether it's our welcoming city status, whether it's our climate action. Most of what we do, they're trying to ban or defund. And we are presented with a choice. And as long as I'm mayor, we're going to stick to our values. A different type of city could walk away from our commitment to reparations because Donald Trump is the president, not Evanston when I am the mayor. And so the last piece of this answer is that our reparations program is a part of this that is critical. Funding directly in not only just generically the African American community, but specifically families that have been here since the era when Evanston was explicitly and deliberately and consciously engaging in harmful acts that we now need to repair the consequences of, so that families that have been here for generations can stay, can invest, can build wealth. So if we do all of these things simultaneously, we can get where we need to go. But I want to stress, we have to do all these things because it's a crisis, because the extent of the problem is so severe, and we can't be timid. We can't be unwilling to take action. We have to have backbone, because otherwise we're going to keep seeing what we're seeing now. That is the cost of inaction, and that's why I'm so passionate about being willing to move forward and saying yes to change.
I've seen you at City Council, Ms. Payton, and I believe you're right that you are tolerated and not listened to, particularly accurately or with any attentiveness. And so I have to answer your question a lot more simply than the mayor, which is that you need to be at the table when these things begin to get started. Anything that affects your neighborhood, you need to be there. My closest affiliation with anything like this is with the disability community, and there's a saying that they have, nothing about us without us. And that should apply to all residents, particularly our black residents, I think, and any residents whose neighborhood is going to be affected by a project. Owen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good today, thank you.
Yeah. So my question is for Mr. Boarini. So you're quoted in Evanston Now as saying that when you spoke with Daniel Biss in September, you both agreed to run a campaign without slander or personal attacks. Given what I would deem your inappropriate comments at Mr. Biss this evening, how do you justify your language? And if you were elected as our mayor, would you treat Evanston staff with the same disrespect?
Ooh, thank you for that. I don't believe I was being disrespectful to the mayor. I believe I was using his words and his actions, okay? Mayor Biss and I had that discussion, and we did. We agreed to run a campaign that is above board, that reflects what disagreement can look like without shouting, with anger or malice or anything like that, and I intend to stick to that as well too. I think though that, as they say in politics, the mayor has to run on his record, and there's good and bad in that. And I think the bad is subject to criticism, all right, and commentary. I think that my, in addressing the public and residents, I don't think I have that to lean on. I think you will find that I'm far more open and welcoming with people. The only thing I have, I think, is again, that the mayor's words, I think, have to be used, I don't want to say against him, but he has to own them as well too. So actions and words, I think, are fair game for commentary and criticism. Does that answer your question?
I mean, you took a couple jabs at him personally, and I would say, what are you saying? Give it time, I'll understand. How old are you, sir? You're 33. Okay.
All right. Let me give it to the mayor to respond here.
Well, I think the one thing that Jeff and I could probably agree on is if Olin agreed to run for mayor, we'd probably both step aside right now. I would not step aside in fear, I would step aside in joy. I appreciate the question, Olin, because I think we're living in a time of an incredibly combative environment. And I think that we're having trouble disagreeing productively. We see it at City Council, we see it in conversations in the community, we see it obviously in the nation, we see it obviously in the White House. And I think that one of the greatest challenges that I've dealt with in my time as mayor is trying to figure out how to turn down the temperature so we can have productive discussions when we disagree and reach common ground and move forward. Because I do think we've got a lot to do. We have to do ambitious things and bold things and big things, and there's urgent problems across this community. And the thing that's a little bit paradoxical is that if we're always at 11 in the way that we fight with each other, we wind up spending our energy on fighting instead of on making progress. And so I think about this all the time and how I choose my words. Obviously I could do better plenty of the time, but I do my best to choose my words in such a way as to turn the temperature down, bring people together, and facilitate respectful conversations. Because by the way, disagreement is important. Disagreement is valuable. Disagreement is how we learn and how we grow and how we stretch ourselves. And I think we're kind of living in a time where when people disagree with each other, instead of saying, hey, we had a different opinion, let's think through that, we instead say, you must be wrong, or you must be corrupt, or you must be dishonest. And I think that that pattern is really, really problematic and standing in the way of progress. So I appreciate your question. I think it's something for us to all challenge ourselves with, and I certainly spent a lot of time on that and plan to spend yet more going forward.
Hello, Mayor Biss.
We have spoken on, thank you.
We've spoken on many occasions. This is Maggie. And I just want to ask you a question. Do you ever, looking back at your last 4 years, think, maybe I made a mistake?
We can't hear you.
Maybe you made a mistake somewhere along the line and that you wanted to apologize or retract and say, you know what, maybe I misread something, or, I mean, being a leader doesn't always mean that you have to be right. So I would appreciate any kind of, I feel like a lot of times I'm hearing today is, but this is for the greater good. So I would like to hear from your perspective any moments in which you've questioned anything that you've done in terms of decisions that you made or actions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. I mean, first of all, earlier today, I mentioned that something that I said to a reporter just in December was a pretty serious mistake, and one that I regret very much. But to give an answer that's not just rhetorical but substantive, I think that the turmoil that occurred through the first 14 months of my time as mayor, when we were having so much trouble with the city manager search, really, really hurt. It hurt the effectiveness of our organization, it hurt the morale in our organization, it hurt the cohesiveness of our city council. And certainly if I had come into office knowing what I know now, I definitely would have done far more to make sure that the city council was entirely aligned before we did anything to embark on those searches, to make sure we agreed that we knew what we wanted, that we knew why we wanted it. Because the approach that we took, which I take ownership for, was one that kind of moved us down the path, divided, without clarity about what we wanted, toward an outcome that wasn't best for the city. So that's an example of something I've thought a lot about as an illustration of how I should have thought about the problem differently and used different techniques to bring people together and align us around a shared objective. And I think that's a lesson that I spend a lot of time thinking about going forward. Thank you.
You want me to comment on something you should apologize for?
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Percy Berger. I'm going to give you something easy to respond to. And this is about a very specific action, not about your past, but about the future. If anyone in here has traveled extensively
Can you hold the mic?
around the globe, around the world.
Hard to hear.
Can you hear me now? Sorry. If anyone in here has traveled extensively around the globe, around the world, I've been to the ocean fronts of some of the greatest countries, the greatest beaches around the world, and I've lived in them. I've never seen a fence until Evanston. And I've been in Evanston for 53 years owning homes. I've been on the ground for about 28 years, and I've lived in the 3rd Ward in the 100 block for 22 or 23 years. I run south. Everything is open to anyone, any country, to go to the beach. I go north from here. You have to buy a ticket. You have to pay to go to a beach. The 5 greatest beaches in Brazil and Rio, they're free. The greatest in Europe, on the Mediterranean, they are free. We charge. Other residents, other people can go to any beach anywhere in the world if they can get there. There are no fences. I think you may have received a photograph of the beach with no fences that were taken down up near where we live. It was beautiful. That's the way beaches should look. It's not for anyone specifically, but everyone owns a piece of it. Just driving by, you can jump out of your car and go to the beach and not have to have a pass. Many times I have seen couples have driven from Chicago and other places with a handful of kids. They are there to get in the gate, and they didn't realize we had to pay. I put
Chicago residents do.
snatching it out and giving other people a card, and people disappointed. And so my question to you is, would both of you support a methodology to change the way we look at the lakefront? Because it's a backhanded way by doing that makes it exclusive, that Evanston owns the lake. And where we don't have the lake directly, and it's open on the back of homes, you have to cross over someone's fence, which I've seen happen near us, to get in the water, but they can't step on the beach too far because it's the resident's property. And that's all around where I live. I live in the 100 block of Dempster, almost 20 years, 4 houses from the beach, and it happens. What will you do on making this a more global city with respect to how we view the lakefront? Is it Evanston property? Is it rural property? And can anyone use it? Will you support that?
I love this question, and I hate those fences. So I will say, personally, I see the world the way you do. I think that it is a great natural asset, and I want everyone to be able to enjoy it. And I've gotten those cranky phone calls from friends from other communities who show up and cannot believe that they're being called upon as non-Evanston residents to pay to be on the beach. Now, obviously, there's some revenue that comes from this, and at the same time, we're trying to make sure that we don't overburden Evanston residents with taxes and fees, and so the opportunity to collect some revenue from non-residents is worthwhile as well. So that's an issue to be worked through. But philosophically, I certainly agree with you. And I also want to say that I don't think this conversation ends with the entrance to the beaches. In fact, when you first started talking about fences in the lake, I thought you were talking about some of the fences that exist in the park, that kind of in between these beautiful parks and literally the most beautiful thing about Evanston, there's these eyesore fences. And so I think there's an opportunity as we think about the most kind of extraordinary natural jewel of Evanston for ways to make it more accessible to all, ways to make it more beautiful, ways to make it easier for everyone to enjoy. I think we're taking important steps with the cafe at Arrington Lagoon, with the folk festival and others, but I think we have to continue going down that path, because what we don't want to say is this is a really, really, really beautiful thing just for some of us. I think that's the opposite of the attitude that we ought to have in this town.
Common ground. There we go. I think, yes, making this a welcoming city is something we need to do and be able to, we want to attract visitors to here. Councilmember Reed was instrumental in getting the beaches free for Evanston residents. And as the mayor pointed out, there's a revenue situation here too, is that we count on some of that to pay for various city services. We have a lot of licenses, fees, you all know about that. And so if we're going to eliminate that, we probably need to find some savings somewhere to offset some of that. And I think we can probably do that if we review the budget. I bet we go through and find some other things. So I think there's a way maybe to remove those fences if we can offset the funds. And again, make it part of the lakefront protection plan. Think about how we look at the lakefront, any commercialization efforts, anything we can do to increase public use without burdening the park itself, without burdening the people who live along the park as well too, and make it part of something again that we promote. We can promote here for Evanston.
Okay, so thank you so much for everyone's patience. So we'll wrap it up, 30 seconds.
Thank you so much, Malika. Thank you for everybody who helped organize this great event. Thanks for everybody for coming today and spending some time with us. Really appreciate it. In my 30 seconds, I would just reinforce that I love Evanston. I'm committed to this city. I want to help make this city better. And I believe passionately, most of all, in all the experience, the expertise, the innovation, the creativity, the engagement that is here in this room and throughout this city. We have the answers amongst us already. We just need to pull them together and utilize those to make our city better for today and for the future. So please, I look forward to your support. Vote for Jeff Boarini, April 1st, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This room being full is just, especially this moment, is a reminder of what I love about this town, of the incredible engagement and the passion that people feel for working together to make things better. And I think we have an extraordinary thing going in this town. I said earlier, one of the biggest problems we have is people want to be here so badly that it keeps driving up the cost of housing. That's a sign that we are doing a lot right, but also a sign of what a challenge that we still have ahead of us if we want to make this town fully accessible and affordable for all. I think this is a pivotal moment. It's a moment of real concern across the country, a moment where what's coming at this community in particular from Washington is dangerous, and a moment where I think we need leaders with experience and knowledge, understanding of how the different layers of government work and fit together, how to bring resources to this community, and how to protect us against what's coming. Like I said, I'm really proud of what we've done these last 4 years, but there is so much left to do. I'd be honored to have your support and ask me for your vote on April 1st. And no matter how you vote, if I have the honor of being reelected, I cannot wait to collaborate with all of you to move our city forward. Thank you very much.